welcome all the participants in week 9 session 5th. Here we are going to discuss the scope of social action in India, and also we are going to discuss about in this today's session as the last session of in terms of social action. So we are going to discuss about the scope of social action in India, as well as we are also going to discuss about the key challenges, what the the challenges and how you have to overcome and how you develop the skills to overcome the kind of the challenges comes in the way of social action, right. So let's start with the very first topic, that is about the scope of social work, social action in India. So this is the scope, you could say the scope area of the social action in India is like advocacy on and policy change. So whenever there is a need of any kind of the advocacy and policy change, the social work, particularly the social action as a method is the right approach to go with. So it's about the legislative advocacy, it could be policy reform, it could be lobbying. So in the legislative advocacy, it's about the influencing the legislation to protect and to promote the rights of marginalized communities, right. Then policy reform. So many a time we discuss about that one very important objective of social action is to bring the policy in, bring the change or modification in policy if it is required. So working to change or create political policies at local, state and national level to address social injustice are the very important scope area for the social action. Lobbying as it's also as in a process, so engaging with the policymakers and legislators to push for specific laws or reforms for the community development. So these are the advocacy and policy change are important scope area for social action in India. Next is about community development and empowerment. So community development and empowerment is the prime objective of social action. So it's an important scope area. So grassroots organizing, capacity building and participation action are key strategies for the grassroots organizing involves mobilizing local people, local members to collectively address issues that impact them, while capacity building focuses on the strengthening their skills, knowledge and resources to advocate for themselves effectively for their own rights. Participatory action, whereas, ensures that community members are actively involved in the planning, decision making, execution of initiatives and so on and so forth. That's all ensuring their voice guide the process and fostering a sense of ownership and agency in the ownership in overall outcome of the any programs and policies. So grassroots organizing, capacity building and participatory actions are important scope area for social action. Next important scope area of the social action is social and economic justice, as it is important objectives of the social action. So this anti-poverty initiatives, employment rights, housing rights. So like in the anti-poverty initiatives, like the programs and actions aimed at reducing poverty and improving overall economic condition of the disadvantaged or the poor community members. Employment rights, this is another very important areas to bring the justice, to give in some kind of the employment, so that or even the campaigns for the equal wage, fair wages, good working conditions, safe working conditions, this all comes, and rights of the workers, this all comes under the employment rights. Even the right of the equal wage of the female again as compared to the male. So these all comes under the employment rights, that's economic justice aspect. Then housing rights, even apart from that there are racial rights also, educational equality is required and education equity as well, healthcare access, gender equality, food security, immigrant rights, disability rights, criminal justice reform. These all there are many other initiatives that represent diverse efforts to challenge inequality and promote a fairer and more inclusive society. That is what the objective of and the scope of the social action in India. Anti-poverty initiatives like employment rights and housing rights are, whatever we talk about, are so important and essential component of social justice. Moving ahead, next about the human rights and civil liberties. So protection of rights, legal aid and support, campaign against discrimination. So protection of rights are what? Is ensuring the protection of basic human rights, including freedom of speech, assembly and religion, legal aid and support like providing legal assistance to the individuals and groups facing any kind of the injustice. So together all these human rights and civil liberties works to safeguard individuals' freedom and actually promote equality, right? So the protection of these rights is essential to fostering a society where people live or can live with all kind of the dignity, security, safety, respect and all. Violation of these rights, these human rights and civil liberties often lead to social unrest, inequality and injustice, making their defense crucial to the maintenance of free and fair society. So to create a free and fair society, these all kind of the civil liberties and then human rights are important to look at and to work for, to promote it. Next is about the environmental justice. That's also the part of somewhere human rights, and so environmental justice are what? It's the sustainable development, conservational efforts, climate action. So promoting practices that protect the environment while ensuring social and economic benefits for all. That is what the sustainable development. Conservational efforts like action to protect natural resources and biodiversity. So that's what we have witnessed during the Chipko movements and many other movements. Climate actions, so advocacy and direct action to address the climate change and its impact on vulnerable communities. So, climate action is so important because again, because of the globalization, liberalization, privatization, industrialization, urbanization. So there is a lot impact has been happened on the climate, and then haves or the corporate or the industrialists, they don't bother about because they are more concerned about the economic development, or they are very selfish of their own self economic development without concerning for the future generation, without concerning what they are actually doing wrong with this with the climate, with the with the overall ecology, with this on this earth. So this is what again a kind of the justice on behalf of the underprivileged. Usually we see that in an urban areas or in any areas which is the areas which is considered to be very shady, very unsafe, unhygienic. In those areas usually the poor peoples are living, and then rich people's habitats are more cleaner and more greener many a time. So to create a sustainable future, it is essential to actually integrate environmental, social and economic consideration into all aspects of the development, right? Protecting natural resources, combating climate change and ensuring social equity are all vital for the building resilience and ensuring a fair, healthy and prosperous world. By working together on these interconnected issues, we can safeguard the planet's future with promoting justice, equality and opportunity for all communities and all nations and all states. Sustainable development is not just a goal, but a pathway to balanced and harmonious relationship between the people and the earth. Next scope area is about gender equality and women's right. Violence against women. This is the campaign to combat domestic violence, sexual harassment and other forms of gender-based violence or unfair wages and kind of abuses in the workplace and all. So this is what the violence against women, that is comes under the gender equality and women rights scope area of the social action. Economic empowerment program to support the economic independence of the women, like through the microfinance and SEGs, we have seen that how the women became economically empowered. Reproductive rights, so important. Advocacy for women's autonomy over their reproductive health and rights are so important for that. Health accessibility, health awareness, health availability, this all important. Even the right of choosing their own kind of contraceptives, choosing the women should have the right to decide how many babies they want, when they actually want, what kind of the contraceptives they want, and so this is what the reproductive rights that has to be there for the women, and it's an important and integral part of the women's empowerment aspect. So to achieve true gender equality, it is essential to address the violence, economic inequality, reproductive rights and many more, as these issues deeply affect women's ability to live freely and pursue their full potential. So empowering women economically and ensuring their rights to make decisions about their own bodies are the fundamental or foundational to their overall well-being and societal progress in general, right? So as we work towards these goals, it is very crucial to create an environment where the women are respected, valued and able to thrive in all aspects of life. Through continued democracy, advocacy, legal reform and support, we can build a more just and equitable world for women and for the future generation, belong to any gender. Definitely there are many other genders which face lot of the kind of equality and unjust. Now coming to the key challenges that is you are supposed to manage and so to get a more productive and successful result of social action. So there are many key challenges and concerns and issues that affect the social success of mass mobilization. Social action involves various strategies and relies on active participation from many stakeholders, from community member to agency to government officials to any activist and the social work and all. So this diversity requires through planning and careful execution. If not managed in the kind of the mismanagement in the social action, these issues can disrupt the process and lead to failure of the planned intervention. So important consideration for a professional social workers in the while applying the social actions are like empowerment of the clientele. So this is another concern area we have to take into consideration and taken it so important. Dealing with groupism, accountability of yours, building right alliances with the different stakeholders and the correct alliances, balancing macro issues and the remaining apolitical. So important, because you are working with some kind of the legality, some kind of the social related to the some political things. So it's very important to make a balance in your professional attitude. So remaining apolitical is so important. Let's discuss them one by one in detail. So what is empowerment of the clientele and why it is important? So the central theme behind any social issues for which social action is being carried out is the empowerment of the client for sure, and empowerment of the client group or the community in general. In the process of social action, the group whose cause is being advocated must get empowered and develop the skills strengthened to gain access to common resources for the development of the community. The social worker must from time to time evaluate and monitor the progress of social action in relation to the overall goal of the empowerment, right? So the end result of these social actions should be equitable partnership between the interested stakeholders, allowing democratic decision making and actual access and usage of denied resources. Any deviation from these goals may lead to the failure of the philosophy of social action and accumulation of power and resources in the hand of few, right? So it's not, if you not manage properly of the empowerment of the individual or the community or the group for whom you are working for, so a kind of disbalance and failure of the philosophy of social action and accumulation of power resources in the hands of few selfish people may go. So it would mean injustice to the entire group and community for whose cause social action is being carried out and for whom you were there. So some skills like advocacy skills, capacity building skills of you are required, active listening and empathy, so that you could give this kind of the impression to the masses, to the community members that you are important, you have the capacity and capabilities. In turn, they will develop the kind of empowerment. Motivational skills so important. You have to give the motivations to the underserved or disadvantaged community members or your client or clientele, whoever are, so that they will develop a kind of motivation, and so they became more empowered while participating in the activities. Communication skills, your communication should be good enough. Not only the verbal, but your gesture, your written communication, the overall networking of yours should be good enough, so that all gives a kind of confidence among your clientele and clients, so they develop more empowerment. They get the empowerment out of all this. problem solving and critical thinking. Your problem solving skill and critical thinking is so important, that how you can actually use the community as a resource, as a human resource, as a, you know, a cultural capital, as a social capital, how you have used them and how critically you are thinking to improve their capacities and capabilities, and how you are critically thinking to actually understand who is actually holding what kind of the power, whose motives are what. So this is what your critical thinking and your problem solving strategy should be good enough. Encouragement of self advocacy. You have to encourage the community that not always dependent on you, rather they have to develop the kind of the self capacity, and so they can do the self advocacy for them. So these skills actually enable social workers to effectively support and empower clients, helping them gain self confidence, skills and resources needed for the self reliance and growth. Next is dealing with groupism. At the level, social action questions the unjust power equations and unfair distribution of resources. It implies confrontation with those power and resources. In the process, certain groups may develop having members with vested interest, which might not be apparent. These groups may try to take lead and influences the social workers to be on their side. Any position may raise intergroup tensions and conflicts. So depending upon the situation, the counter attack can be very fiery and challenging. So at the level of planning itself, the social worker must foresee this all kind of the possibilities and handle the situation very very critically and very tactfully. This is very important, right? So what kind of the skills which has been required from you while dealing with groupism, right? Not with the group, but if there is a kind of the groupism has been developed, so you have to be very critical enough and you have to be very skillful enough to manage those things. So like your analytical skills should be very good, so that you could understand the who is actually tries to overpower the others and taking the all kind of resources and the benefit of the program. Conflict resolution skills yours should be very good. So because many times out of this groupism the conflict would arise, and sometimes the conflict is very hidden, but you have to be understand those conflict, and you have to manage those conflict. Negotiation and mediation skills yours should be good. Emotional intelligence is very important while dealing with groupism, because many times they actually come with their own justification, but you have to be good enough in your EQ and your emotional intelligence should be good enough to make and to understand the situation. Transparency and accountability should be from your side should be good enough, and you have to create the things more transparent and make everyone's accountable for their own activities. So through that you can actually minimizing the idea of this whole and then aspect of this groupism. Networking and relationship building should be good enough. I mean, you have to be good with everyone's, even those who try to hold the things, but even with whom and with them your relationship should be good, so that you can actually manage the overall kind of the conflicts has been there, or any kind of the future conflicts you will be able to manage. Next issues and concern while working with the community for the social action is about the accountability. So the professional social worker has to ensure that there is a consistent and continued communication among all the stakeholders, and process of clear accountability and transparency is maintained in order to give the cause positive legitimacy. So any miscommunication or negative communication may result in losing the credibility. So and in turn may affect the overall and entire social action process. So this accountability and credibility as very important principle of social action is there regarding the credibility. So you have to build a good credibility with your client and clientele. So for that you need a very good communication skills, as I have already told you what does this communication skill means. Your interpersonal skills should be good enough, that how you have to interact with others and how you actually put the impression on others. Organization and time management skills is required, because this all matters to make the things accountable and make the things more transparent to the community. self-assessment and reflective practice is important, because every time you also have to self-assess yourself. This is what a professional requirement from your side, that you have your reflective practices should be always reflect, always self-assessment is important, that you have to assess yourself whether you are going in the right direction or not, whether of your any action or your any words could create any kind of the miscommunication, or so how you make your things more accountable. So this is what is so important from your side. Record keeping and documentation is another very important skills, because if you actually writing everything and if you're documenting the things become more accountable, because you can show you have a proof for every aspect. So that is what is so important. Transparency or honesty from your behalf. Once you develop this credibility of your once you develop this credibility with your client and clientele, that you are honest enough, so this you could do through making things more transparent with your client, right? And so you develop a more accountable towards the whole process. Feedback reception and responsiveness. You should be accept the kind of even the negative or positive feedback from the client or clientele, or from anywhere, or from any stakeholders. So to understand that whether the things are going in right direction or not. So feedback reception, positively taking the feedbacks is so important. Ethical integrity is important, and the leadership and role modeling is important. You have to show a good leadership towards the others. So these skills enables actually the social workers to foster a strong sense of accountability, building trust and credibility with clients, colleagues and the wider community. Next is about the building right alliances. Social action process calls for participation of various stakeholders for the cause of or issues we have already discussed, that's interconnected, taking the help of the other stakeholders and many stakeholders for the social action around certain cause is important. It is essential that the social worker uses skills to understand the perceptions of the stakeholders and their level of interest in social action. So understanding the other's perception is so important. Only then the social worker actually be able to utilize the capabilities and skills in the social action process effectively. While doing so, the social worker may have to form alliances and partnership with several people and organization to further to further the cause. Therefore, he or she should needs to be careful in guarding against those who may use the activities for their own gain and may even dilute the cause and thereby defeat the goal of social action. So developing the networking with the right alliance, with the right stakeholders is so important. And what kind the skills which has been required from you is the networking skills with the right stakeholders. Stakeholders analysis and assessment is important, that you have to analyze who are the stakeholders are more benefited for this cause, who will be go long way, who is not coming here with their own personal gain or personal reason. So indeed, giving chance to those who may jeopardize the cause may legitimate them as a genuine social actionist, when in reality they would be fostering the personal rather than the group cause. So your stakeholder analysis and assessment is so important. Interpersonal and relationship skill building is important. Strategic thinking, that how you have to use the different stakeholders and how you make the every stakeholders feel important and they will be more responsible towards the cause. Cultural competence is required, because maybe you are from other culture, you are working with some community, some clients and some clientele with some stakeholders whose culture is different. So your culture competency, your cultural understanding of the culture of that community is so important. Then you will be able to actually work with them and make all the stakeholders into the loop. Ethical judgment and integrity is another very important things to be required from you, that you have to be good enough in judging others. So don't be always because as we believe in principle of individualization, we believe in non-judgmental attitude, so we should not be judge anyone. So ethical judgment and integrity is important, and then judging others with all kind of the ethical aspects, that everyone's is important, everyone is having their own every community is having their own worth and dignity. So respect everyone's worth and dignity, this all comes here. So these skills enable a social workers to form a meaningful, effective alliances with and that support the goals of the social action and contribute to the lasting impact. So developing or choosing the right stakeholders is so important. Balancing the micro issues. So social action often entails shift from the micro to the macro in addressing policy change and also legislating alteration. In social action, balancing macro issues involves addressing both individuals at macro needs and the broader societal at the macro concerns are simultaneously happen at the same time. At the micro level, social worker focus on supporting individuals and small groups and addressing personal challenges and fostering an empowerment, right, on one basis. At the macro level, whereas they work towards change influencing policies, community dynamics and societal structures to improve conditions for entire community, right. So balancing these two perspectives, micro to macro, requires our understanding how personal issues are connected to larger societal factors and addressing both to create a more meaningful and sustainable change. So understanding both micro to macro issues is so important, how both are interconnected. And that what the skills has been required from you to make a balance between micro to macro issues are like analytical skills of yours, communication skills, advocacy skills, empathy and compassionate, analytical skills. Why? So analyzing the data, social trends and patterns help a social worker to understand how broader issues affect individual and small groups and vice versa. And then your communication skills so important, and then advocacy skills of is your important, empathy and compassion is important. These skills are necessary for addressing the needs of individual while remaining sensitive to the impact of the broader social structure on their lives. Adaptability, social worker must be flexible and able to shift between individual focused and the community focused work. Adapting their approach are so important, because many a time that if you stick to one part only, so you will actually not creating a kind of the just to other level, and so the problem would be there. So it's very important to adaptability. You have to be flexible and able to shift between the individual focused and then community focused work. Strategic planning, then systems thinking of yours required. Then cultural competency is important, that understanding and respecting cultural diversity is essential to address the micro issues and while designing inclusive macro interventions. Cultural competencies, that's why it's so important. Ethical decision making is also that way so important, making ethical choices that consider both immediate individual needs and the long term impact is crucial for the in balancing micro and macro issues effectively. So these skills are actually so helpful and giving a guidelines to the social worker to effectively address the individual concerns while also concerning for the whole community aspect. And the last one is the remaining apolitical. Social action entails a clarity and understanding of political environment. However, politics does not mean party politics or formal kind of the politics of some parties or the national level the kind of the political things or elections kind of things. So any kind of political affiliation of the social worker will on the one delegitimize the activities and at the same time jeopardize the real cause by ensuring the selling out of the cause for the promotion of one party interest rather than the group interest. So it's very important that you have to be apolitical in all your action in all your words. So remaining apolitical in social action involves focusing on the goal of social change without being influenced by political party lines or ideology. That's so important. And what the skills are important here is the critical thinking of yours, that ability to analyze the issues without bias or preconceived notion, enabling the identification of root cause and then formulation of neutral solution focused strategy, be very unbiased towards the certain communities, right. And then strategic thinking of yours is important. Empathy is important. Understand what is this? Why empathy is important? Because understanding and respecting diverse perspective and experiences, fostering inclusion without aligning with any particular party political views is so important. Communication skills of yours important. Collaboration and networking is important. You have to be at a one time apolitical, but your collaboration and networking is so important because you have to influence some kind of the policies. Advocacy and lobbying of yours important. For that you need some kind of the collaboration and networking. Legal and ethical awareness is important, knowing the legal framework and ethical guidelines governing social action to ensure the initiatives remain within the legal and moral bounds, free from political manipulation. So this is so important, and it's difficult to be apolitical in a very political situation. So this is all about this today's session and this whole week. So in concluding, I would say that the process of social action, ranging from identification to mobilization and execution, provides a structural approach to tackling social issues. That's why it's a professional approach. The scope of social action in India remains broad, addressing challenges across multiple sectors including education, healthcare, labor rights, environmental justice, and more, and so on and so forth. So these efforts contribute to social reform by not raising awareness only, but also driving policy change and legal reforms. Ultimately, social action remains a powerful tool for creating a more equitable and just society by building a collective power, advocating for marginalized communities, and challenging oppressive structures. Social action fosters long-lasting change and promote human dignity. In this whole week, or in this 9th week, we have discussed the social action as a method of social work, social action and social reform. We also discussed about the social action in the Indian context, adapted from the John Samuel evaluation of social action in India. We have discussed the radical social work from the Saul Alinsky and Paul Ferreira's ideologies and method. We have discussed the process of social action. We also discussed today the scope of social action in India and the critical and then the kind of challenges and issues which are concerning for the social action. So at the end, I would like to say that what the Paul Ferreira has said, that greatest humanism is to be bound in the struggle for human liberation. Thank you so much. This is what the references for this week.